5, 4, 3.
Hello, we are here again. We want to talk with Angela again about neuroplasticity. We've done a couple of these and we've talked about neuroplasticity in general, and we've talked about how neuroplasticity helps movement practitioners with their clients. Today, we want to talk about it just for our own bodies, for any body, and how you can use these concepts on your own. And I guess, Angela, with Feldenkrais, because you use Feldenkrais in this course to be a window for us to understand neuroplasticity, what about Feldenkrais makes it the perfect lens?
Well, learning is at the very essence of the Feldenkrais system. And neuroscientists have discovered that anytime learning is happening, there's neuroplastic change that's happening. And in a very short period of time, when learning in the right situation, the mapping, the connections in the brain multiply at a very, very fast rate. Mm-hmm. And so, but what's the right situation? So that's something Feldenkrais really understood well. So the right situation includes awareness, mm-hmm. It includes learning, and it includes diversity. So if you are instead working from just a muscular perspective, let's use the example of tight shoulders for the day, right? Yep. So if you have tight shoulders and you're working on stretching your upper traps and getting your upper back strong, and you're watching TV at the same time and checking your phone, you're probably not going to learn anything. And another hour later, boom, your shoulders are back up. And why does this keep happening? People get so frustrated about this. So it's because they're not attending to the learning in a way that's conducive to real change. And the other thing that is unique to the Feldenkrais work is that Feldenkrais understood that all patterns happen through our whole self. So we're not breaking it down and just working on shoulders. That pattern has networks through our entire system in our brain and in our body. And so that's one of those are a few of the points. And Dr. Feldenkrais was really like 60 years ahead of his time in understanding this. And he operated as though it was current science at that time because he was a scientist. It was so evident to him.
And he worked from his own body and his own experience. You have a great story about his knees that I would just love to hear again, and I think everyone wants to hear it.
So how he found his way into this work started because he badly injured his knee, one knee in the beginning, and he was born in 1904. So you can imagine as a young man, there weren't many surgical options, and they told him not to use his knee. And so he was lying around trying to figure out how he could function without using his knee, and just started to experiment. And it turns out that, for example, you can straighten your leg by pushing your knee straight, or you can move your hip up over your leg, and that straightens your leg. Or in the last Facebook Live we did, you gave the example of having this woman reach from her heel and boom, her leg was straight. Mm-hmm. So there are lots of different ways to go at the same thing. And the more different ways you go at it, the more embedded the learning becomes and the more reliable it becomes.
I've used that story. It's a different part of the body, but I've used that story on my own shoulder. Is I was having a little impingement and it was hard to get my arm above my head. And so I just had that story at top of mind, and I grabbed onto the upright poles of the trap table, which for anybody, you don't need these, you can use a banister. And I just held on to them, and then I sent my hips back, and so that folded me forward, and all of a sudden my arms were at my ears. But
right, so you moved your body, right, you changed the situation completely. So you had developed an association that if you put your arm up towards your ear, it's going to hurt. So you moved your body towards your arm instead, right?
Yes,
A
exactly.
really, really good example. I
Yeah,
love it.
it
Yeah,
really-
and I love that you could do it yourself. I mean, once you understand these things, that's it. You're empowered to figure it out and apply it all the time.
it's really fascinating, and it's very empowering too. It gives me, and if anybody takes these concepts, it gives you the power over your own body. Instead of going to someone that's fixing you, you're taking charge. And I love that piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to share with you a story about a client who also had a knee problem, because I think sometimes in stories, things make a little bit more sense, especially in terms of how a pattern affects an entire person.
Mhm.
So there's this gentleman who is really a pillar of society. He would light up a room when he walked in the door. Anyone who had a conversation with him felt like he was a friend, and just very active in the community. And I noticed he had sort of disappeared. And then someone referred him to me. And when he came in, it turned out he had stopped going out because he was in tremendous knee pain. He needed 2 knee replacements and couldn't have them because of other medical conditions. And so this bright, brilliant person had become very recluse and was getting very depressed, actually. And what was keeping him from going out was stairs. He said, every place I go, there's stairs and I can't go down or upstairs. So I asked him to show me what he did to go upstairs. And as he went to step, his whole body braced. You could see it in his face, you could see it in his arms, and he was just holding on with pain. And so I took him to the treatment table and we worked on just softening his rib cage, softening his breath, letting his head start to move freely again. So there are actually 472 joints in the body, and the knees are just 2, right? So I know they're big joints and we think of them as important, but we have so many other options. So I worked on his other options, regaining his other options, so that he could use the rest of himself and his articulation in his feet. And he learned to kind of, one of my clients calls it samba, going up and down the stairs, or swagger going up and down the stairs. So you're using your whole body instead of your knees. And it's a really, really effective way. And he came back to life in a way, you could say, because he was no longer intimidated that if he ran into stairs, he was stuck.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what a freeing experience for him to be able to take that fear away, because it's not like you can get around the world without avoiding all the stairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's fascinating. I had a client, it's a similar story. It's a much younger person, but he had an injury a long time ago. He strained his abdominals and it really restricted him. And so when I started working with him, every time he felt anything in his abdominals, he would freeze and stop and say, I feel it right here. I mean, I teach Pilates. That was a tricky thing. So we stopped doing Pilates. That wasn't the right thing for him. And one of the things I said to him, I said, okay, you keep talking about this thing that you feel, and he would point and you feel it. And every time you think of that, you remember what happened back when.
Right. There's all these associations that go with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the spiral. I'm like, do you ever think about how many times you felt that and nothing happened and you were fine afterwards? Do you ever note that? And his eyes just, I love when you reframe this for people, or you reframe it for yourself. They're just like, oh, and it's this realization, like I love that moment of paradigm shift for folks. And so it's,
Yeah,
and I said,
absolutely.
you need to do Feldenkrais, not Pilates, and sent him to a friend of mine. But yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I just described to you was an aspect of Feldenkrais called functional integration, where I'm working one-on-one with people. But the other way it takes place is through lessons of explorations of movement. And that's what we're going to do in this course. So just like I did that little sample with you the other day, I'll be directing verbally, taking people through explorations through which they can learn their own best solutions. and discover things about how they can work with patterns themselves. So it's really a course that's for anybody who's curious and for anybody who has anything they want to improve. And the advantage of doing it in this way, in sort of an immersion of a couple of days, is that we're not just doing one lesson, right? Patterns layer into us, right? And they're repeated over time and they get more and more associations, like you were talking about that guy, right? And guess what? We unlearn them by unlayering them too. So by being immersed in an experience of a couple of days, you unlayer one layer and then you go further and then you go further, so that by the end of the course, the patterns much less visible. You could say in neuroplasticity terms, it has less cortical real estate, you could say, because you've got more options. And that's another key. It's not just like telling someone not to do this or to do that. It's providing my client with, okay, you can use the weight of your head, you can use your torso, you can use your feet. So you're kind of like dancing up and down the stairs, and people get to learn for themselves a lot of different options, and not just in the movements, but in the strategies. So like you said, you took a strategy and you fixed yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't have to remember an exercise, you remembered a conceptual approach. And that's really what we're offering here.
Absolutely. And I love the conceptual approach, because I mean, just even that, when you take one concept and apply it to many different body parts, that you can feel the synapses in your brain, you can feel the extra networks starting to grow with that.
Yeah, it's like brain food.
Yes.
You know, and like your brain's growing new roots and new possibilities, right? And it spreads through the whole brain, it spreads through the whole cell, through different dimensions of oneself. So just like when we eat good food, it doesn't just go into our stomach, it affects our whole system.
Absolutely.
The same is true when we put the right information to our brain. It's not just a cognitive thing, no. It affects how we can live more easily, right? Have more freedom, which lets us be free to have more creativity at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It is a more freeing and creative way to live. And it gives you options when you're facing obstacles or adversity, or it gives you pathways around it. Something
and
that's
tools you can kind of use all the time, right? Like all day long.
Yeah, exactly. Something that's coming to mind is just, and this is a bit off topic, but we're talking about the term you said, cortical
real estate.
is, I love sometimes when I'm just on the computer Googling images of the nervous system and just seeing all of those networks and imagining that in your own body and the networks of connections and
love that.
Yeah, the artwork that
trillions and trillions of multi-trillions of possibilities. It's really amazing.
Really exciting. And it's great. So this course is happening. We're doing it. It's all online from the comfort of your own home. October 21st and 28th. It's a 2-day course, but we do 2 Saturdays. So you'll have a week in between to let those synapses go crazy and happily in your brain. It's from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. online. All of it's online, but you will be moving and you will be experiencing. So you're not just going to be looking at a computer the whole time.
Absolutely.
That
very
is
experiential.
Yep. In all of this information will of course be in the comments, but the website is neuroplasticityyinaction.com. And you can register for the course. You can if you want to give us your email, we don't inundate you, but there's lots of lovely ideas that they change the way you think about movement and your strategies. And we love to send those too.
Yeah, and people have asked, can I take it if I'm not a movement professional? Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Everyone's
absolutely.
invited. We want everybody to be able to take advantage of this information. And people have asked me, can I take it if I can? I'm not sure if I can attend a whole day, and they'll have access to the material. So if you need to step out, you can come back and pick things up. That's very feasible, very possible.
Yes. And
And
you'll, and you'll also be able to, even if you are there the whole day, being able to revisit the material is so helpful to get that second touch.
that's right. And
Yeah.
then to come back around for round 2, bringing questions to us, we'll create a venue for that so that we can address them.
Yes,
And we have an early bird discount going on
we
right now.
do. Yes. 3 days, because it's the 17th. So the 20th, but if you register by August 20th, you save us some money on the course. We'd love to have you. It's the diversity that we've had in these courses is just, it's part of the profundity, if that's a word. It's part of the
love it.
amazing
Yeah.
thing that you can have, is just everybody's experiences coming together and changing how we think and how we move and how we live our lives.
It's really exciting material.
It really, really is. Good. Do you have any other stories for us, or do we want to sign off for now and think of what we want to say in the next live? We're going to be doing these a lot.
Yeah, I just want to say that as an example, some of the clients who I have who are coming to take the course, who are people who have experienced tastes of the Feldenkrais method, and they felt the magic, right? And now they want to understand the magic.
Yeah.
So it's like they want to dive in. They're like, what happens? You know, how did this work? And so they want to understand. And when we understand something, it's more embedded cognitively too. So we'll be doing a lot of movement explorations, a lot of experiential work, and we'll be providing some logic as to how this works, which makes it easier to take home with you, I think.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I love about it. The lectures are so thorough and so informative. I love that piece of it.
Great.
Yay. All right.
Until next time.
Until next time, all of the information that we said is going to be in the comments. If you missed it, it's already there, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Katrina.
Thanks, Angela.